Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. Welcome, yes. Yes. So today, we are going to solidify my Paladin from the 8-man run. If you guys didn't have a chance to see my 8-man run, that was freaking amazingly fun. And in that run, I decided I was going to do a Sanctuary Paladin. Well, now I have a Sanctuary Paladin, and I don't know exactly what I want to do with him. So what we're going to do today is we are going to try and figure out what the hell to do with my Sanctuary Paladin. And this is the video right here. 8 Paladins, 16 Auras, Walk to Hell. We did it in a fairly record time, I think. And honestly, a lot of people really enjoyed it. So, yeah. But the problem is what the hell do we do with the Sanctuary Paladin now that we have him? So the first thing we need to do is we need to take a look at Sanctuary. And we need to see what the hell Sanctuary does. And how we can best take advantage of that. Now, the place that I like to go for stuff like this is Amazon Basin because it has all of the like nitty-gritty information, the stuff that we need to actually figure out what the hell's going on. We're going to theorycraft this character today. We're going to figure out what the hell we can do, best equipment to use, all that beautiful stuff. Obviously, this character is going to be based around undead. Sanctuary is a ability that specifically allows the Paladin to dish out massive amounts of damage to the undead, and we need to find a way to take advantage of that as best we can. So first off, the damage bonus that is given by Sanctuary is actually physical damage. So if we read up here on Sanctuary, we have things like radial magic damage is only applied to hostile undead within the radius once every 2 seconds. If a hostile undead is within the radius of multiple auras, then the radial magic damage of them all is applied. Magic resistance is not pierced. It will still reduce the radial magic damage, and immune to magic undead will not be damaged. All eligible hostile undead within radius will also be knocked back. We know that Sanctuary knocks back undead monsters. Does not knock back or apply radial magic damage to undead bosses. Griswold and Radamant apparently are unaffected by the radial damage. That's interesting. Plus AR against undead and plus damage to undead are not applied. So this is something that is really quite strange about the way that Sanctuary works. And a lot of people don't know this because the tooltip is wrong and it tells you all sorts of weird stuff. It doesn't do what it says. And we're going to take that into account when we try to build this character around this ability. Let's see. Damage resist of undead is pierced. The supplier's physical damage is applied as though the undead have a damage reduction of 0%, even when immune to physical. However, DR is not pierced when calculating crushing blow damage. It remains completely ineffective against immune to physical undead. So it looks like to me that when you were utilizing this particular ability, any undead monster that you come across will have a physical resistance of 0. This also means that physical damage is your main damage type with this particular aura. So you're going with a physical damage aspect, which pretty much means that what we're looking at, from what I can tell here, is a physical damage Zeal Paladin would be our best bet. Since the DR of undead is pierced after DR from -% from amplified damage or decrepify is applied, it is redundant when DR is less than 0%. If amplified damage or decrepify don't result in less than 0%, then they are redundant. So basically what it's telling me is amplified damage and decrepify don't apply to any monster who is affected by the reduction in the physical damage reduction for Sanctuary. Piercing of hostile undead DR only applies to supplier's physical damage and not to that of allies. It also applies to undead targets beyond its radius. Interesting. So it applies to everything that the Paladin is attacking. Hmm. This is old information. 2005. Ooh. No, you haven't missed a lot. We're just going over Sanctuary's effects and how it works. Hmm. It sounds to me like all undead monsters will be at 0% DR no matter what. Crushing Blow, however, may not work against a physically immune undead monster, which could be a little bit of an issue there in building the character. But all physical damage will pierce the target no matter what. We don't necessarily need Amplify damage or Decrepify when we're going up against specifically the targets that are undead monsters. This particular character is going to specifically be an undead killer, by the way. There's really no way around it. It's Zerrath and Lawbringer are both on here, yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any really good reason to actually max it out. Like, I'm looking at the auras and I'm looking at how they function. And I'm not really sure there's any benefit to having a higher level of Sanctuary than normal. I'm not really sure quite how to put it other than it seems to me like the damage output from Sanctuary is pretty much the same no matter what the level of the ability. And it really comes down to the physical damage aspect of the character being multiplied by the fact that the monster has no physical DR, which doesn't necessarily lean toward a character who has maxed out Sanctuary. Like, I'm not seeing a good reason to max out Sanctuary. Let's open up the game real quick and let's play around with Sanctuary. I kind of want to play around with the idea of... not that one. This one. Alright, let's just pull up a random Paladin. Doesn't really matter which one we got here. Alright, Badgerine. Badgerine of the Starmen. Probably Necromancer, Hildefons. Although I'm kind of leaning a little bit toward the Druid. The Druid was pretty fun as well. Not gonna lie, they were both kind of fun. Actually, all the classes were fun. Let's be perfectly frank. They were all pretty fun. Alright, so what I want to see is how much damage output Sanctuary has under, like, optimal conditions. Like, if we get as much plus to skills as we can, what are we looking at as far as damage output here? Of course, I got defensive aura equipment on this character. This is all stuff from my solo self-found run. Not going to be particularly helpful. We are using a plague. How many plus to skills do I have total here? I've got 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. No joy on the shield there. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I've got plus 12 at the moment. Alright, let's play around with this and let's see how we can finagle this for optimal effect. So first things first, let's just throw some points of strength so the equipment stays on. That way we actually have the plus to skills and whatnot that are given from those items. So the synergy for Sanctuary is cleansing, which means we're probably going to end up maxing out cleansing for the damage output. We don't necessarily have to, but let's just see how high it goes. The whole 38 cleansing with frickin' 87% reduction and a radius of 60 yards. Holy Jesus. Alright, and then offensive auras, unfortunately it does require quite a bit to get down to Sanctuary. I mean, with 1 point, I'm already sitting at 134 to 330 magic damage with a radius of 11.3 yards. If I cap it out, I'm sitting at 364 to 882 with radius of 24 yards. Now, as we know, the damage to undead doesn't do anything. So the 1080 damage to undead doesn't actually give us a bonus. According to the website, the AR against undead and the plus damage to undead are not applied. So these are basically just lies. They don't really do anything. So leveling up the skill doesn't actually give me a bonus damage. Instead, what it does is it just gives me a larger radius on the skill and a higher magic damage pulse, which not really entirely sure if it's worth doing. Let's go over here real quick and let's just play around with this, shall we? I'm curious. I just want to see how much damage the ability does on its own, on unhelped. I mean, in hell difficulty, and I think we're on player's aid, aren't we? Yeah, in hell difficulty, player's aid, it's probably not going to kill anything. The damage output of it just really isn't enough to actually physically kill something. Which makes me wonder, is stacking points into it really all that useful? The other thing here is that according to what it says, Sanctuary still applies its negative resistance no matter what, even if the target is outside the range of the aura. So having the range of the aura be a little bit smaller doesn't exactly hurt anything. As you can see here, though, the difference between killing a ghost and killing a scarab is pretty massive. I mean, I can practically demolish the ghost in a matter of seconds, but killing a scarab is going to take some time. Which means that pretty much anything that's not an undead monster is going to take me a little bit of time to actually kill. Let's go to another tomb that hopefully has more undead. Alright, so here we go. We got skeletons. We've got ghosts right off the bat. And as you can see, I can pretty much burn through the ghosts that are immune to physical with absolutely no issue. This is without anything set properly. Like, I would probably max out Zeal. I would probably max out Sacrifice for the damage output. And as you can see, even in Players 8, like, undead monsters are absolutely demolished by this ability, just simply because they just have absolutely no resistance to any kind of damage output. So it's extremely easy to kill any monster with this that is an undead monster. And I don't really necessarily think that I need a high level to achieve that, though. Like, it seems to me like I would be perfectly fine with even a relatively low level sanctuary, if that's what I want to do. Like, let's do a test here. So let's just 1-point wonder it, right? So we're just going to 1-point wonder it. We'll do the same thing we did before. Max Zeal, max Sacrifice. We're going to 1-point wonder Sanctuary. I'm not going to put anything in the synergy, so no cleansing synergy. And then we're going to run it, and we're going to see if it has a similar effect. I mean, as you can see here, the ghost, like, just gets annihilated. I still can't do much damage to the actual steel scarabs. He teleported away? A little punk. Now, I was thinking about Lawbringer, and I was thinking about Azure Wrath, and Lawbringer and Azure Wrath are both, I think, the opposite of what we need. The problem with Lawbringer and the problem with Azure Wrath is that neither one of them has a particularly high physical damage to take advantage of the way the skill works. Because the skill doesn't actually give undead damage, because the skill doesn't actually apply the magic damage like you would think it's doing, because the skill is more physical in nature than it is anything else, because of the way that it strips the monster of their physical immunity, it seems to me that the way to go would be to go with a high physical damage output build. Specifically, like, the highest physical damage that you could possibly get. Unfortunately, you'd probably be better off with something like Fanaticism for that. But in the case of undead monsters specifically, like if you were just to make an undead, like, monster, it could work out. Let me, let me just, like, function this out real quick. Sorry, I had to ban somebody from chat. Alright. If we maxed out Sanctuary, we would still have, well, what is that? Quite a few points left. In fact, let's do this from scratch, shall we? So, assuming that we maxed out Sanctuary, specifically for the ridiculous range of the aura. I mean, the magic damage isn't exactly terrible, but I don't know if it's really worth using. Like, specifically for the magic damage. Although it's very nice to have the cleansing aura. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the cleansing aura is very nice. I'd like to get the cleansing aura in some other way, perhaps, but I don't really know how to work that in. Plague Sword is nice and all, but it doesn't really have the high physical damage that I would need to take advantage of, like, most other skills. What's up, Chemical? So I think what we're looking at here is, dare I say it, something like a grief. So what we're going to want is we're going to want like the highest physical damage Zealer that we can possibly get. And it's probably going to look something like this. So maximum sanctuary. We could probably add in the God Zealer into this as well, because, I mean, why not? We're dishing out massive damage to undead, and this would be a pretty big boost to undead damage. So to do that, we would have to go all the way down to Fist of the Heavens, and we would have to put 20 points into that. Which, to be honest, it's not really that big of a point cost, because you're going to go down here to Holy Shield anyway, and you're going to go down here to Zeal anyway, so it's really just 3 points to get down to Fist of the Heavens. At that point, you could potentially beef up Cleansing for the synergy bonus to Sanctuary, but I'm not really sure that it's worth doing that. Although it's nice having a maximum Cleansing, just, you know, for the purpose of having maximum Cleansing, it doesn't really seem to be all that potent in damage output. I mean, let me, just really quickly, just for the sake of testing purposes, let's go to Players 1. I just want to see how effective the aura is in Players 1. And we'll go to Arcane Sanctuary. Sounds like fun. I mean, it will eventually kill them. They are regenerating, unfortunately, but, I mean, they'll die pretty quickly. And what kind of damage output could we actually get that magic damage up to, like, per hit? I'm not really sure if it's going to be worth it, but potentially the skill could go a lot higher than that. Obviously, level 32 isn't even close to, like, the maximum plus to skills that you could potentially get. I mean, it's not gonna unfortunately kill most things, but you could be looking at 3 here instead of 2, so that's 1. You could be looking at 3 here instead of 1, so that's 3. Plus 2 here, so that's 5. Another Soj or a Bull Kathos, so that's 6. Scylla, 7 here. You could also be looking at Skillers, so 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So about plus 13 skills. Maybe even... So 13 more than what we have right now. Which would bring it up to, what, 45? What the hell would level 45 bring us to? Level 45 would bring us to a damage output of 230 to 275. Let's just calculate the maximum. 275 plus, I believe it's 7% times 20. 7 times 20 is 140. So we're looking at 275 plus 140%. 660 doesn't really quite seem right. I think I'm already past 660. They might have made some changes to the way the ability works. Let's do a quick reset here real quick. So this is level 27 with 123 to 300. Level 27, 123 to 150. So that it has been changed since the previous calculations. The 123 has remained the same, but they doubled the top end. So instead of it being 150, it's 300, which means if we take the same calculation we should be able to figure out how much damage that is. So 275, they doubled it is basically what they did. So 275 plus 275 equals 550 plus 140%. Gives us 1,320 damage on the radial hit. Then we also have the fact that it's double damage within melee range. So double damage within melee range means times 2. So when we're in melee range of a monster, it's going to take 2,640 damage every 2 seconds, which we can divide by 2 for a DPS of 1,320 magic damage every second. So 1,320 damage per second for the pulse effect. Now, granted, it has a radius of 32.66 yards at level 45, so it's going to hit literally everything on the entire screen. Now, the problem with that, though, is I don't really know how I would ever get it that high without sacrificing pretty much everything to do so. I'd need huge amounts of plus to skills, and I don't know if it's really worth it. Brandon, you literally asked, how do I get the editing tool stuff? Literally, right before you posted that, Nightbot posted the link to the editing tool stuff. I'm trying to think of the optimal weapon for this character. Physical damage is definitely important, but at the same time, we're also going to be looking at weapon speed is going to be important as well. Also, the other issue is that not everything is going to be undead, right? So we're going to be in a situation where we're not always going to want to use this, which is going to put us in a weird position. So sometimes we're going to use Sanctuary, and sometimes we're not going to use Sanctuary. Sometimes we'll be using probably Cleansing, I would assume, would be the other one, since we'll have that capped out to ridiculous proportions. So if we were to throw maximum points into Cleansing, now we're looking at a pretty nice defensive mechanic with a huge heal of 15 life per, so every 2 seconds. So we get a very nice 15 life. But that's 20 points, 40 points. I mean, that's a 40-point investment. It's like next to nothing. And I'm trying to figure out how I could make that even better, but I'm fighting with myself about, like, either natively running the Sanctuary Aura, which could be interesting to natively run it, or using something like Azure Wrath or the Lawbringer. But the problem with both of those is that they don't really have a really large amount of actual damage output. Of course, I can't go online right now because I got it set up so that I can respec. Do I have Azure Wrath sitting around somewhere? I probably do. I think the Azure Wrath that I have loaded into my pack was broken at one point, which means the one in here might be broken as well. I did eventually fix it, but I'm pretty sure the one in here is actually still broken. I think the best thing to do at this point is to pull up Hero Editor and let's play around creating a character, seeing if we can make the character that we want to make. Alright. So let's just go ahead and make him level 95. Set him to hell difficulty, max out his gold, give him all the waypoints. 105 or 95, I think, is what, like 106 skill points? I can't even remember. Let's batch his quests as finished. Get him his skill points that he needs. So he is 94 times 5 plus 15, which gives him 485 stat points. I guess I can run his skill points too. 94 plus, what is it, 444? So 4 plus 4 plus 4. So yeah, 106. And then the last thing is his HP, so we gotta get his HP set correctly. So all classes have level up stats, and you gotta calculate in their level up stats. So if you go down to... Oh, that was not the correct one. Never freaking wants to pull up the way I want to pull it up. There we go. Okay. So, 2 per level up. So we take 94 times 2 plus 54. Gives us 242. And we also have mana. So 1.5 mana per level up. So again, 94 times 1.5 plus the base mana, which is 14. Gives him a total of 155. And his stamina is 1, so 94 plus 88. So 182. Alright, now that we got his stats settled properly, let's give him his equipment. So, since he's going to be a physical melee fighter, and that's kind of the most important thing here, is that he's just dishing out physical damage, we need to focus on physical damage output. I usually don't use this weapon, because it's not really the preferred weapon that I like for most characters. But when it comes to the Zealer, I think it might be the best choice, especially for this character, considering that Sanctuary is stripping the monster of all physical resistance. So if we utilize a Grief, I know, dirty word, this might actually be the best choice for this character. Obviously, we're going to want to put it in a Phase Blade so that it's fast, because we don't have a particularly fast character right now. Grief is going to give the damage output that we need in physical. It's going to give us a very fast base with increased attack speed, which will, of course, give us also a faster hit rate. I'm not exactly sure how fast we need to be to hit that 4-frame Zeal, but we're going to play around with it. I'm pretty sure High Lord's Wrath is going to be our best bet here. And in fact, in a lot of ways, I think this character is going to be built very similarly to the way you would build a physical Zealer. Now, because it's undead and demon damage, I'm gonna go with the... We're gonna go with the standby armor, which is not the armor that you would think. Which is Chains of Honor. Honestly, I think Chains of Honor is a better armor than Fortitude in most situations. It also has plus to skills, which I think is definitely going to be something that we want here. Let's give him a torch real quick, because pretty much every single build in existence is going to have a torch. And, of course, in Annie as well. And I always like to give my guys a cube, because I don't ever build my characters without them. Alright, boots, it's pretty much going to be Gores. There's pretty much no option here. Gores, since we're a physical damage fighter, we're definitely going to want Gore Riders. So let's just go ahead and throw those on. For the belt, it's most likely going to be pretty much a standard melee option, so I'm thinking here String of Ears. And then the gloves are probably going to be Laying of Hands. Now, I did consider some other options, like, for instance, Ghoul Hides, as well as Grave Palm. Both of these are based on undead damage. And I was thinking to myself, well, if I'm going to go with an undead build, it would be nice to have a massive amount of undead damage. And I'm not entirely sure that these are good options because I don't really have a lot of speed. But we're going to put these in here anyway, and we're going to test around with them. But I'm thinking that Laying of Hands is probably going to be our best bet. Alright, which leaves our helmet, rings open, as well as our shield. A shield option... I mean, when your girl has goblin toes, you don't really like saying it then. You better watch out for them girls' goblin toes. That's right. I said it. Yo, girls, goblin toes. Yo, girl got them goblin toes. Boom, boom, boom. All right, let's put in a let's put in a G face, and then we're also gonna add in a couple IAS jewels. Let's just grab some 15. I guess it really doesn't matter. 1540s will be fine for right now. We'll just throw these in here. I'm trying to think for the shield. Plus the skills is really important, but also there's just so many good shield options for the Paladin. I mean, objectively, we have like 1,000 million shield options. If there's Haas, there's Phoenix Shield. You got freaking Spirit. You got massive amounts of resistances like Sanctuary. I mean, Phoenix would give us the physical damage that we're looking for if we made it in a 45 all-res Paladin shield. We wouldn't get as many plus to skills, but it would definitely be a very high damage output. Let's import a Phoenix shield, and let's see how that rolls. And then we'll also throw a Haas in, too, just for giggles. So let me grab shields. And Phoenix, Phoenix, and we'll grab a Sacred Rondash, Phoenix, and then I'll also throw in the Haas as well. There's nothing wrong with a good Haas. Of course, I didn't go to Paladin shields. Herald of Zacharium upped. That's what we're looking for. Now, I also had an idea for this build. I was thinking about potentially going into the Godzilla portion of things. The Godzilla portion of things might be interesting, so we're going to see how that could potentially fit in. I'm not sure if we'd have enough points to do it, but let's give it a shot anyway. So let me go ahead and bring in a Principal Archon plate. And to make this work, really, that's all you need is the Principal Archon plate. So that's pretty much it. As far as rings go, we need Cannot Be Frozen, so we're going to have to throw in a Raven Frost. And, there's a couple different ways I was thinking about building this character, and we still might need a dual leech ring. I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work out, so we're going to play around with it a little bit. The helmet could be a different option as well. Instead of going like Crushing Blow, CB, etc., we could be going with something else. Attack speed is actually what I was thinking. So a good option for attack speed is the Andariel's Visage with a 15% IAS jewel in it, obviously. The Laying of Hands gloves should cancel out the negative fire res on Andy's Visage fairly easily, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. We'll also get a pretty big bump in strength from this as well, so not a terrible option. Now, I don't necessarily think going with offensive skillers is really going to help us out like a super tremendously large amount. But if we're going for a specific monster type, it might be the way to go. Because as I look at the abilities and I'm seeing the way that this works, it doesn't seem like beefing up the ability has a strong effect on the damage output of Sanctuary. In other words, having Sanctuary at an extremely high level isn't really going to help me out like a whole lot in terms of damage output. It might be the difference between 200 or 300 damage output in actual like magic damage that's hitting the targets. It also is going to give me a little bit of extra radius, but it's not going to give me extra damage versus the undead, because as we know, the damage to undead isn't actually affecting me, or it's not affecting the monster. It's actually just setting the monster's physical damage reduction to 0, which is really nice because it allows me to just burn through any undead monster that I come across. But it doesn't seem like there's a really strong reason to beef up Sanctuary to its highest, utmost, damage output. So I don't think offensive skillers is my best choice. I'm probably looking at combat skillers for this character. That's pretty much what I would assume. So let's go ahead and pull in combat skillers. The other choice, of course, is instead of going with combat or offensive, I could potentially go with just damage AR charms, which is also an option. So let's grab skillers, Paladin. Let's just do combat skillers. There's really nothing more to it, so let's just fill this up with combat skillers. And then we're going to need AR, so let's pull in some AR charms. So 3 2020s, I guess, will be... It's just the easiest thing to pull in here right now. And that gives us a full inventory of combat skillers with a full inventory of max damage AR charms. I mean, as it's shaping up, it's literally just shaping up to be like a generic Zealer, which is kind of what I figured it was going to be when I realized that Sanctuary was actually physical damage. We need a ring. So let's get jewelry, rings. I know there's one in here that has dual leech on it. Yes, that has dual leech. Alright, save. Alright, so this boy is saved. I would like to get another helmet option. Well, I got Andariel's Visage, so that's a decent option. Get the chains, we got the string of ears, we got the Ravenfrost, High Lords. Let's just bring them into the game and let's test them out, shall we? Alright, so I gotta close this out so I can bring them in. Copy. Paste. I don't see how full Griswolds would help the set at all, actually, the build at all, actually. What would full Griswolds do that anything else in the game wouldn't already do? Where the hell is the game? Can you go on the right screen, please? The problem with Lawbringer, and this is what we were just talking about, is that Lawbringer, as well as the Azure Wrath, both have basically no physical damage. And as we just discovered, the Sanctuary Aura is all about enhancing physical damage. So the fact that Lawbringer has Sanctuary is nice, but Lawbringer doesn't have any actual damage output to utilize. Decrepify doesn't stack with Sanctuary, as we just found out, so the two basically don't actually work in tandem. So what Sanctuary does is it reduces the resistance of a undead monster to 0. It does not stack with Decrepify. Now, if Decrepify reduces the resistance of the monster below 0, then Decrepify will take precedent and will work instead. But if Decrepify or Amplify damage do not reduce the monster's resistance below 0, then they basically become redundant and they don't do anything. So Lawbringer's Decrepify doesn't help at all either, which is unfortunate. So you end up in a situation where basically you don't need Amplify damage and you don't need Decrepify versus any undead monster. The other thing is that since physical damage is the main component of Sanctuary and how it works, not the magical damage portion, like, you need high physical damage to take advantage of it. Alright, so let's just set this bad boy up and let's see how this rolls, shall we? So first off, let's go ahead and get him the strength he needs to actually wear his equipment. Let's set him up with max block as well. So we're going to have to put his points in first. So we definitely have to go get our Holy Shield. We're going to 1-point wonder the Holy Shield for right now. Because I'm not exactly sure how many points we have to spare. We definitely want to get Zeal. We are definitely getting Sanctuary. We are definitely going down to Cleansing. At this particular point, we've got 92 points to spend into whatever we want to spend. Now, we don't necessarily have to max out Sanctuary. So one of the weird things that's the really weird things that's going on with this build is that I'm confused on whether or not I should actually spend points into Sanctuary or not. I know it sounds kind of weird, but the effect that Sanctuary is giving me, the thing that's actually making it extremely easy to kill the monsters, doesn't require me to dump points into it to get it. It's literally just like, okay, you have it, yes, congratulations, you got it, now you can murder monsters. Good job. If I dump points into it, then that's something else entirely. What is my current crushing blow, my current open wounds? I'm sitting at 10% chance of open wounds, which is fine. 50% crushing blow, and that's of course because of the helmet. So if I take the helmet off, I go down to 15% CB. It's one of the big downsides, unfortunately, of using Grief, is that Grief just has absolutely horrible Crushing Blow. It's got a decent amount of Deadly Strike on it, which I am sitting at 85% Deadly Strike, and even without the helmet, I'm sitting at 70% Deadly Strike. Now, what we did discover, though, is that if a monster is immune to physical, Crushing Blow doesn't work with Sanctuary. So, despite the fact that Sanctuary will reduce the monster's resistance down to a really low level, it's not, unfortunately, going to actually get what we want in terms of Crushing Blow, so we don't get any bonus there. We're just going to throw these in random helmets. Alright, let's do a little IAS calculation math, and let's see how close we are to 4-frame Zeal. I am curious. Alright, so first off, let's go ahead and grab our Phase Blade. Primary weapon. The Phase Blade does have IAS on it. We're looking at a 40% IAS, which is a perfect roll. But let's just go ahead and throw it in there anyway. As far as IAS on our actual character, we're looking at 1520, so we're looking at 35% in equipment at this particular moment. So let's go ahead and put in regular IAS at 35%. We're obviously going to be using Zeal. No Fanaticism. So according to this, we are sitting at 44444, 8 frames per attack. Further IAS is currently useless, 5.2 attacks per second. So let's bring this back a little bit. So let's take off the gloves. So let's put it at 15. If we take off the gloves, we're at 4.46 attacks per second. So we're not at 4-frame Zeal anymore. 20, 25, 30. So it looks like our breakpoint is literally 35%. So that's the exact amount of IAS we need. So 15% and 20 is the exact amount of IAS that we need to be able to reach 4-frame Zeal. So it looks like we could potentially work in one of these for more undead damage and more AR against undead. If we wanted to, probably Ghoul Hides, because Ghoul Hides have 760 attack rating versus undead, whereas the Grave Palms only have 200 attack rating versus undead. So we've got an interesting situation here where we could potentially work this in for relatively nothing. So we would probably have to put on the Herald of Zakarum, which would get us to, what is that, 30? We need to be at 35, which is just a little bit off. So if we replaced Andariel's Visage with this one, which gives us 35%, which is the exact amount of percentage that we need, in addition to the Grief, then we could put on the Ghoul Hide Heavy Bracers. We would lose the Crushing Blow one from the G-Face, though, which is unfortunate. But we'd also gain +2 skills, life leech, you know, blah, 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 blah. Another way that we could potentially do it is by putting on the Herald of Zakarum. I kind of like having the Crushing Blow from the G-Face, though, which I feel like is going to be good. So let's test this out with the current setup. We're probably going to want the AR from Zeal. So we're going to have to dump 20 points into Zeal pretty much no matter what. We're probably also going to want the damage output from the Sacrifice Synergy. So we're going to put 20 points into the Sacrifice Synergy. The Holy Shield would definitely be nice, but we have 54 points left to spend on damage output abilities. Now, one thing I was considering is instead of using Chains of Honor, we could use Principle, which would require us to spend a little bit more strength. But it would allow us to pull in the Godsealer synergy, which is interesting. And since we're using Laying of Hands anyway, and the entire purpose of this build is to do massive amounts of damage to undead, we'd get an additional undead pulse here. So that would cost us 20 points into Fist of the Heavens, which still leaves us with 32 skill points left. We could stack on Sanctuary, which I feel like I'm probably going to do anyway, just because. And then that leaves us with 13 points to drop into Cleansing for the synergy bonus. I mean, having a nice high-level Cleansing certainly isn't terrible. And our HP... 2,129. That's, of course, because we got full HP skillers.
I am...
So, let's test this against the main monster that I can think of that you probably test an undead killing ability on. Let's go ahead and put this on 5 and 6. That way we can scroll between them. 1. Throw this here. Put our charge over here. Oh yeah, we never did set up our max block chance, did we? Well, we're sitting at 57%, which is not acceptable for a paladin.
Not in town.
I didn't even think about the mercenary for this character. Holy Jesus. Okay, I'm pretty sure that was P1. Was that P1? Yes, that was P1. Let's do this test again on P8, shall we? That was ridiculous. I just absolutely demolished Pindleskin from existence. I don't know what the hell just happened, but Pindleskin just, like, disintegrated. My Zeal attack rating is awful, by the way. That's also something I'm going to have to consider. Mighted. So I would definitely say that as far as undeads are concerned, the undead monsters have absolutely no chance whatsoever against this build. Like, the damage output against the undeads is absolutely insane. Let's go test this in a place that's not filled with undeads. So, some undeads, but not all undeads, right? So let's go to Chaos Sanctuary. Chaos Sanctuary has, 2 undead monsters and 1 that's not undead. We also got the Causeway here, which is filled with maggots and things like that. We got some demons. This is P8, by the way. We are still on P8. Now, functionally, he just looks like a regular Zealer. Like, from what I'm seeing right now, like, he's just a regular Zealer in most regards. Doesn't really have a huge amount of damage output for regular monsters. But whenever he comes to undead monsters, the undead monsters just disintegrate. Like, it's actually kind of insane how ridiculously fast the undead monsters just disintegrate from existence. I mean, it's like one hit, maybe like 2 hits on most of the undead monsters. The only thing he slows down on is the non-undead monsters. I mean, granted, we do have quite a lot of Venom Lords here, so he's slowing down quite significantly on the Venom Lords. Although, not enough that really makes it honestly matter. Oh, wow, that's a really big group of monsters. And he'll just sit here and hold down the Zeal button until basically everything's dead. Now, one thing you might be noticing is that the Oblivion Knights are having trouble cursing me. It's something that I noticed about, like, the curse process, is that they get knocked away. So every time they go to actually curse me, it doesn't really work, because half the time they get knocked back before they can actually curse you. The unfortunate side effect of having a constant knockback is that monsters often get knocked back off the screen, unfortunately. It's actually pretty easy to get Grand Visor of Chaos to come back on the screen, by the way. Pretty much all you have to do is just not be next to him. He gets mad at you and he comes to follow you. Just like that. Of course, getting him to follow me when I'm constantly knocking him back is also a little bit of a pain in the butt. Well, I pretty much killed him in like 2 hits. Wow, that was kind of insane. Let's go pop the other seal. I want to see how Lord Decease is affected. Now, the other interesting thing about this build is that you do pretty much have max cleansing that you can use at any point. So you can always just scroll over, go to your cleansing, clear off whatever, you know, curse it is that they've got on you, and then go back to your Sanctuary Aura. Would have been nice if I put some extra points into block. So for instance, like, let's say I was in here and I was fighting Infector of Souls, which we know is a demon, right? He's not an undead, he's a demon. So we don't necessarily have to be running Sanctuary for him, because Sanctuary doesn't help us. So when we're fighting Infector of Souls, I could just switch to Cleansing. with pretty much no ill effects. That'll make sure that I'm nice and free of any negative, effects like curses. Pretty much completely clear me of, any, like, poisons. And just make it so that I'm relatively more safe. I mean, it is freaking level, what is it, 21 right now with a 37-yard radius. I mean, your group's gonna love you if you play this character. Like, and if you're in a group situation, because you're constantly gonna be swapping and swapping between the auras. So whenever you come across undead monsters, you're gonna swap to the undead aura. You're gonna beat the crap out of the monsters. When you fight bosses, you're probably gonna go to your cleansing aura again. I mean, there's other auras you could potentially utilize. This could be an interesting situation where you just have other auras, like, on hand whenever you want. Definitely having some AR issues. Of course, the AR issues would be solved if I had put the right number of points in per block, because I would have gotten a huge amount of AR from the decks that I needed to reach the maximum block chance. Yeah, Crush Flinch can be used as a budget option for an Uber Smiter. Alright, let's try that again on P1. Let's also really quickly fix his block chance so his AR is actually correct. So let's pull this down to P1. And we're going to respec him real quick. Alright. I might also respec him a little bit differently. So Max Sanctuary. We're going to go down here. Make sure we grab Holy Shield. We're going to max out Fist of the Heavens for the synergy for Holy Bolt. We definitely need the AR, so we have to max out Zeal. We don't necessarily need the damage from Sacrifice. It didn't really seem like it was that big of a deal, but I mean, it will be 240% increase, which is not too shabby. I mean, I could throw those points into Holy Shield instead, or I could throw those points into Cleansing, which would give me more regeneration, or sorry, more damage to the Sanctuary Aura. I could also throw them into Prayer instead, which is an interesting option, which would give me a higher regeneration when I'm using Cleansing. I had considered using Plague on this specifically for that reason. Let's go ahead and get my Strength real quick. Alright, and then cast Holy Shield. So 172 dex, 112 base, and we're sitting at, how much attack rating do we have? 5,598. That's not really a lot. It's actually pretty bad, attack rating wise. I mean, granted, we do have the ITD on the Grief, but it's not going to help us for any of the elites. I feel like we need more attack rating than that. I mean, one thing we could do, instead of dumping points in the Sacrifice for the increased damage, we could dump points into Blessed Aim for the increased AR. So Blessed Aim actually does give you a passive AR increase, which could help there. Let's try that instead. So let's dump 20 into Blessed Aim. And that basically consumes the 20 that we would have dumped into Sacrifice. That brings us up to 6,900 Zeal attack rating, which we could augment a little bit further by adding in some more AR items. Anything that has attack rating would definitely help. I believe Hawes would also have a significant AR effect on us as well, but we would lose a significant amount of damage, obviously, from taking off Phoenix. Which still leaves us with our 12 points that we can dump into... We could dump it into Sacrifice for more damage output, or we could dump it into Holy Shield for more defensive output, or we could dump it into Cleansing for more Sanctuary damage output. Since we're not actually capping Sanctuary, I'm not sure if beefing up Cleansing to the max is really all that great of an idea. But, well, let's just go ahead and do it anyway, shall we? Thanks for the $5, by the way, Clayton. I really appreciate it. Basically, any melee weapon with high amounts of Crushing Blow can make a pretty good uber weapon. The thing is that you really want to have a decent amount of Crushing Blow when you go in for the ubers. And a lot of people will use the Black Rune Word. Crush Flange is also nice. It has 33% Crushing Blow. There's quite a few weapons that you can get your hands on that have pretty decent Crushing Blow on them. It's not like a, you know, this is like the best weapon, more so as like, do I have enough Crushing Blow? So like when you look at your Crushing Blow, like currently I'm at 50%. 50% would be more than enough for ubers. Some people would want to go higher than that. Some people actually go a little bit lower than that, but you generally want a decent amount of Crushing Blow to actually make that work. You need open wounds as well. As you can see, I have 10% open wounds. That comes from the Gore Rider's boots. You want to make sure you have open wounds because that's how you prevent the regeneration for the monsters. And then on top of that, Deadly Strike if you are using like melee skills. But keep in mind that Deadly Strike does not work with Smite. So there's no point in stacking Deadly Strike with Smite because it does not work with it. I don't know, honestly, this character's going pretty good. BBC joke. Right now, he literally just demolishes pretty much everything. I mean, this is P1, this is for dramatic effect. Immune to physical. You guys might be wondering how the hell I killed that monster that was immune to physical. It was not an undead monster. It was a demon. The Holy Bolts killed him. The Holy Bolts that I'm currently shooting out are actually pretty good damage. They dish out a pretty decent amount of damage output. And since I'm on 4 frame Zeal, I actually have kind of a ridiculous like proc rate for that Holy Bolts. So I'm basically just killing him with the Holy Bolts, which is pretty crazy. Another immune to physical. So many immune to physicals this time. What's up, buddies? Did he run away? He did run away, a little punk. Come back here. I mean, just like with any new game launch, I'm gonna play the new game. I played Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, didn't I? Still came back to Diablo 2 once I was done with Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. That's just how it works. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. I mean, it's interesting the way this character functions, but I'm also getting the feeling, and this is just my personal opinion here, that you don't have to build Sanctuary. I know it sounds kind of odd, but it seems to me like Sanctuary is so powerful, even with just 1 point, that it's something that you could potentially use on any character for pretty dramatic effect, assuming your physical damage. So that's the only consideration here, is that you do have to actually have physical damage to increase, because it's a physical damage increase aura. So if you're running like Holy Shock, Holy Freeze, or Holy Fire, it's not going to do you any good. If you're running, you know, like I don't know, like some sort of weird Zealer, like if you're using Lawbringer or Azure Wrath, which are mainly magic damage, or, you know, things like that, it doesn't really do as much as it should. In fact, it almost seems like Azure Wrath and Lawbringer are kind of like mismade. Like, they don't take advantage of the way the skill works properly. Instead, they're just kind of like doing their own thing off on the side while Sanctuary is trying to buff up a damage type that they don't have. And it's a little odd. But the character functions. Like, I mean, let's just put it this way. Like, built this way, like a physical Zealer, taking advantage of the way that Sanctuary works, the character functions just fine. In fact, you don't even have to put in max points into Sanctuary to get the best use out of it. You could put just 1 point into it and you would be just fine. If you build the character properly, you don't need to put points in Fanaticism. In fact, the increase in attack speed from Fanaticism would be kind of useless. I'm not really 100% sure, though, that like this would actually be something that you'd ever want to actually put points into. Because basically what I'm saying here is that even without Sanctuary, even without this ability entirely, the character is still a very solid character. Even if he used no aura whatsoever, even if he just threw like, you know, just like regular attack over here, he would still be able to kill pretty effectively most monsters that he comes to, without any aura whatsoever. And is Sanctuary helping him tremendously versus undead monsters? Yes, it is. Like, the kill speed that he gets when he's fighting undead monsters is pretty massive. But why do I have cleansing aura? Where the hell is that coming from? Didn't I take cleansing off? What the hell's going on? What the ham biscuit is going on with my character? No, 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 no. Where the hell is the cleansing coming from? Oh, I guess it was just bugged. I think it was just bugged. Okay. I was about to say, how the hell was I getting cleansing and and the other auras at the same time? That's kind of nuts. I mean, yeah, if you're already hitting 4-frame zeal, fanaticism is not necessarily required at that point. I mean, granted, with fanaticism, you could take off the laying of hands gloves. You wouldn't need those on. You wouldn't need to put an IAS jewel in your helmet. I mean, I guess with High Lords, which I wasn't even calculating earlier into the equation, I guess I probably could take off the laying of hands, and I could probably throw on the Pindle Killer gloves. I mean, the main benefit here, let me get my Pindle Killer gloves on. The main benefit here, though, is that we're looking at a character that can just absolutely demolish undead from existence. Like, let me see if I can show you how ridiculous this is. Of course, he could probably kill me, too, if he gets a really nice hit off. But that was P8. That was P8 Pendle. Let's do that again to show that it's not a fluke. Not that you would necessarily need to farm P8 Pendle, but... Identify my jewel cane. What'd I get? Garbage. I mean, these P8 monsters die as if they're P1 monsters. Like, it's literally just like 2 or 3 hits, they're dead. Like, gone from existence. I mean, theoretically, this build would be able to farm any monster zone that has undead in it with extreme efficiency. There would be absolutely no issues whatsoever. I mean, you could go to Arcane Sanctuary, and you could farm Arcane Sanctuary. The problem with Arcane Sanctuary, though, is you're going to knock the ghosts off the platform. But you could definitely kill the undead here extremely easily. The Ghoul Lords, pretty much nothing. The Hell Clan would only be like the main obstacle. You'd have to like run back a little bit, let the ghosts follow you. But for the most part, even the ghosts are absolutely nothing. I mean, these are P8 Ghoul Lords that I'm literally handing their butt like they're absolutely nothing. P8 ghosts that I can kill in like literally 1 or 2 hits, if that. I mean, also notice that the freaking Ghoul Lords can't even get off multiple casts in a row because they're constantly getting knocked back. So like, even if they wanted to attack me with relative efficiency, most of the time they end up trying to cast a spell and they can't even get their spell off. This one did. This one did. Like, but it's infrequent. Sometimes they go to cast, and sometimes they get the spell off, and sometimes they go to cast and they don't. I mean, the consensus is that the ability works really well. Like, Sanctuary does what it says it does, and it does what it says it does really well. But it doesn't necessarily need to be maxed to get the best effectiveness. The AoE pulse of Sanctuary doesn't really mean all that much. Have I ever done a Sanctuary video? Like, I'm kind of curious. I don't know if I have ever done a Sanctuary video. The pulse damage isn't trash, but it seems like it's not worth necessarily building. Like, we were playing around with it, and it could potentially kill monsters. There's also another aspect of the pulse damage, which is kind of like... not really involved in the damage, but more so the range. So leveling up the ability for the range, but not the damage, actually is useful. And of course, there's also another aspect to the ability where maybe you don't want to level up the range because you don't want it to knock the undead monsters off the screen. But it has like multiple different things going on here. So like first off, let's go somewhere where there's lots of undead. Let me see if I can show you what's going on. So first off, it acts as a defensive mechanic. So if you have a rather large aura, the monsters have trouble getting to you, which makes it a very defensive mechanic, and the undead are generally kept away from you. The other interesting thing is that when they try to attack you, like for instance, let's see here, like these guys, the ones that have fire attacks, when they try to actually shoot fire at you and things like that, a lot of the times the aura will cause them to get knocked back, which will prevent them from casting. It doesn't always work, but notice that they're trying to cast, and only maybe like 1 or 2 of them are actually getting the fireballs to actually go off. And it has to do with the pulse damage interfering with the cast speed. It's kind of interesting. Like defensively, from a certain standpoint, it helps out a ton. And I was noticing in this the other day with Sanctuary when I was playing around with it, is that like when you were in... let's see if we can actually get this to happen, by the way. So let's go to Frigid Highlands. Let's see if there's any fire archers here. So we're gonna look specifically for fire archers. So no fire archers. We'll just keep re-rolling the seed until we get... Actually, we don't have to re-roll the seed, just re-roll the game. We're gonna keep re-rolling the game until we get fire archers, and I'm gonna kind of show you what I mean.
Not in town.
Oh yeah, Loot Land Sewers always has fire archers. The ones here are more spicy though. Spear cats and goblins.
Not here. Not here. Not here.
And we've got enslaved and where's the more spear cats? I could just go to the sewers. Let's just go to the sewers, I guess. If it's not this time, we'll go to the sewers. I just wanted some more spicy monsters than the sewer monsters, which are a little lower level. Nope. We got carrion birds and more spear cats. The spear cats are in love with us. Zombies, raiders, and melee skeletons. I mean, it's extremely defensive. And what I mean by extremely defensive is that whenever you are in a situation where you have large amounts of undead, the larger the knockback aura, the more it has an effectiveness against the monsters. Let's try this again. There's no archers, so specifically I wanted to show off the archers, but we're having trouble finding some archers apparently. Never have trouble usually. Nope. Spike fiends and storm doodads. Zombies, raiders, archers. Notice the archers are trying to shoot me and maintain a steady rate of fire. But look at what's going on here. The archers can't maintain a steady rate of fire. They're stuck in a situation where they can fire off a couple shots, and then what happens is they get knocked back, And once they get knocked back, they've got to go through the animation. So they're stuck in a situation where they can fire, they could go through an animation, they fire, they have to go through an animation, they fire, they have to go through an animation. They're constantly getting knocked around, which makes it more difficult for them to actually dish out the damage. So, like, there's a whole nother aspect here to the Sanctuary aura that's very defensive in nature, because it just prevents the monsters from being able to maintain a steady rate of fire. If I take off the aura and I go to, like, cleansing, look at the difference in the fire rate between that and when I have cleansing up. Like, the difference between the fire rate between one and the other is insane. They have to have this huge pause between attacks. Half of them don't even get their attack off. I get shot maybe like 5 or 6 times every 2 seconds. Whereas when I take the aura off, like, I'm literally looking at, like, now everybody's hitting me. They're all hitting me consistently. They're firing, you know, dun, 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 right? And then as soon as I throw the Sanctuary aura up, now it's, oh, okay, well, you know, I can, okay, let me just get, let me just get what, stop it, I'm gonna let you do. So there's like, I don't know, there's a whole lot going on here. I mean, the pulse damage isn't like super duper ridiculously amazing, but it also doubles when you're in melee range. So if I were to like dump points into cleansing and max out the pulse damage, which isn't maxed out right now, I could potentially get it to about like 1,000 per second, or like 2,000 per 2 seconds. But as you can see, it's in P8, it's not going to kill anything. Like, even at close range right now, it's not going to kill the target. Which makes it seem like, to me, that building the cleansing synergy doesn't necessarily help at all. The same thing goes on in Chaos Sanctuary. So I noticed this earlier as well when I was in Chaos Sanctuary, is the monsters are having trouble actually putting out curses on me as well. Let's see here. I want to check and see if I've made a video on Sanctuary, because if I haven't, I think that's what we're going to do right now. I'm gonna make a video on Sanctuary. So, I have a video on the Sanctuary Runeword. I have a video on Arcane Sanctuary. I have a video on Gurk's Sanctuary. I have a video on lots of stuff, but not actually the Sanctuary aura. So, let's do that today. Alright. If you guys have never joined me for a live recording before, let me give you a heads up. Basically, what's going to happen is I'm going to play my intro. I'm going to do the video. I'm probably not going to respond to anything you guys have to say, because when I'm recording a video for YouTube, I try to ignore you guys. But then I'm going to play my outro once I'm finished, and then once I play my outro, then I will resume normal activities.
Good day.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically consistently interrupting anything the undead try to do, which is pretty amazing. That's rude. Well, I don't care. All right, you guys ready? 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. That's right, today we're going over a Paladin skill that we haven't covered yet before. Can you guys guess which one it is by my bar down here? That's right, it's Sanctuary. So, Sanctuary is a rather interesting aura in many ways, because it has a lot going on that is behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know about. Some people do. But it also doesn't really do what you think it does, and it has other things that are kind of just mishmashed in, and it's a complicated ability. Let me just say, when I first started researching Sanctuary for my Paladin on the Players 8 the 8-player Paladin run that we had the other day, I was kind of a little bit confused on the way the ability works, and if you pull up some data on the ability, which I think I still have up somewhere. I do. So we got skills, Paladin. On Amazon Basin, you can go over a lot of this information. Sorry for blinding your eyes. Basically, Sanctuary has some oddities. So even though the skill itself, by the way, which says 930% enhanced damage to undead, it doesn't actually give you that. It doesn't actually do that for you. It's a lie. I don't know why it says that, because what it actually does is it reduces the physical DR of the monster to 0%. So basically, any undead monster that you come across while using this particular aura, it's going to reduce the resistance of that monster to 0%, which is going to make it so that they are basically really easy to kill. Because most monsters in Hell difficulty have like a 50% physical resistance or higher, and even if they are immune, they are still reduced to 0% DR. However, the problem is that it doesn't stack with Amplify Damage or Decrepify. So, Amplify Damage and Decrepify will also apply to the target, but if the target doesn't go below 0%, then it's just redundant and it doesn't actually do anything. So the enhanced damage to undead and the enhanced AR to undead are actually completely a lie. It doesn't actually do that. Which is rather odd because, you know, you think they would have fixed that eventually, but Sanctuary just does what it wants to do. Now, what does this actually mean? Well, it means that when you go and attack a monster with high physical damage attacks in a Player's 8 environment, the monsters get absolutely demolished from existence. But here's the weird catch, is that it doesn't matter what level the Sanctuary is. So, whether you have level 1 Sanctuary, or whether you have level 20 Sanctuary or level 40 Sanctuary, it still sets the monster's physical resistance to 0. So even a level 1 Sanctuary can still be extremely useful for killing, say, you know, an undead monster, even if they're physically immune. So if you're running along in Hell difficulty, you happen to have at least 1 point in Sanctuary, you come across a physically immune, you know, like undead monster, you can literally just switch to Sanctuary and kill him, even if you have basically no points in the ability. But to give you a demonstration of how really cool this ability is, let's go die real quick to Pindle, which is always fun when he's Might Enchanted. Little tip is to stand right here on this side of the wall, because it will protect you from the multiple charges. So even in this situation where you're fighting Mighted Pindle, if you don't run out, like I just did right there, you can generally protect yourself from multiple charge strikes at the same time. As you can see, I was able to survive 1 charge strike, which is common, but not multiple charge strikes. So as soon as I left the safety of the little ledge with the Mighted Pindle, there was absolutely no chance I was going to be able to survive multiple charge strikes at the same time. So use that little ledge to your advantage, especially if you end up with Mighted or Fanaticized Pindle, because the little ledge will prevent them from being able to all charge you at the same time, which will help out a ton. However, in this particular case, we're just going to run out here and we're going to have a little bit of fun with it, because we are a Sanctuary Pindle killer. And as you can see, even in P8, I can pretty much absolutely demolish Pindle from existence. And this is thanks to the Sanctuary Aura. The Sanctuary Aura reduces Pindle's resistance to 0, which allows me to do massive amounts of physical damage. But that's not the only thing that Sanctuary does, and Sanctuary has some other rather interesting abilities. One is the ability to basically interrupt anything that an undead monster is trying to do. So as you can clearly see here, these monsters in particular are trying to make their way toward me. And they will eventually get to me. It's just a matter of time. They're going to eventually make it to me, but they are constantly being knocked back by Sanctuary. Now, this is one reason why you might want to spend more than 1 point into Sanctuary, and the reason is the radius of the ability. So at a really low level, Sanctuary has a really pathetic radius, and so it's not really going to hit the monsters like this one is. However, when you level it up a little bit, the radius starts to go up pretty dramatically, and eventually it gets to the point where the radius is, as you can see, 20.6 yards is what I'm currently at level 27. And what this does is it acts as a defensive mechanic versus undead. There's a lot of undead. Many different undead throughout the game. There's fire archers, which everybody hates. There is, you know, like freaking a ton of undead monsters just all over the place. Granted, there are also tons of places where there are not undead monsters, and you're going to have to mess around with those guys as well. But when you do come across undead monsters, what you're going to notice is that the ability just, like, makes them useless. And what do I mean by useless? Well, let's see if we can find some archers real quick here. So we've got some archers and some melees. And as you can see here, the archers are trying to attack me. The melees are trying to attack me, but they constantly get knocked back. And it generally just makes their lives a living hell. So they can't actually fire at me with the speed and efficiency that they would normally fire their bows at me. They're stuck in a cycle of endless, like, okay, I'm going to try to fire at you. Sometimes I'll get that shot off, but then you're going to knock me back. Then I have to recover from that hit. Then I'm going to try to fire at you again. And it makes their attacks very ineffective by comparison. So, for instance, if I were to switch over to a different aura besides Sanctuary, so let's switch over to Cleansing, you'll notice that now all of a sudden their attack pattern has ceased to become random. So they're just going to continually attack at me. They're going to attack in sequence. Every single skeleton is going to get his attack off, and there's going to be no delay between their attacks, which is a big difference between Sanctuary, which is going to literally cause them to have a huge delay in between their attacks. Half the time they're not going to get their attacks off, and it's going to basically just make their life a living hell actually trying to dish out any damage to me. So not only does Sanctuary offer a massive amount of damage output to undead monsters, but it also has a very strong effect in causing the undead monsters to just generally not have a good time trying to attack you. And fire archers are just one example. In the River of Flame or Chaos Sanctuary, when you come across the which of course they're not here, when you come across the cursing type monsters, the Oblivion Knights are also affected by this. So you end up in a situation where you have them trying to curse you on a regular basis, which of course they love to do. They love to curse you, right? Amplify damage, decrepify, they're going to curse weaken, lower resistance, all those beautiful curses they're going to try and hit you with on a regular basis. Well, you're going to constantly and never-endingly be knocking them back and just making their life annoying. You're just going to annoy the ever-loving crap out of them. And in the process, you're going to cause them to have a hard time actually trying to get those curses off on you, which is actually kind of interesting. Because when you think about it, you know, having the monsters not be able to curse you as effectively as they would normally is certainly useful. But this is something that you don't get if you only 1 point Sanctuary. So recently I tried to do a Theorycraft, and I was playing around with all the various ideas, trying to figure out how many points I actually needed to put in Sanctuary. Should I actually build the synergy, which is another interesting topic. So the synergy for Sanctuary is Cleansing. Cleansing is a 7% damage bonus per point, which does equal, I believe, up to 140% damage increase at its maximum. This does not increase the on-hit damage, because the on-hit damage is actually coming from the fact that their physical resistance has been set to 0, right? So the physical resistance being set to 0 is literally unaffected at all by the synergy. So you don't have to dump any points into Cleansing. Of course, Cleansing is a very nice ability, don't get me wrong, and having level 20 Cleansing is something that your group will definitely thank you for, because removing curses and removing poisons is extremely effective in keeping your group alive. But if you don't want the actual pulse damage, which is the 232 to 572 that's on here, you don't have to build the Sanctuary or the Cleansing at all, because that particular pulse damage is only the effect of the sparkling ground. And you still get the knockback effect, and you still get damage output from it, even if you don't build the synergy, which makes Sanctuary just a 20-point skill, because you don't have to build that. Now, you do get double damage when you're close to monsters with that ability. So it's interesting to think about it from a perspective of trying to build the highest damage output of Sanctuary that you can. And basically what you would do in this case is you would get really high plus to skills. You'd beef up the cleansing synergy because that would get you your 140% magic damage. And if you manage to get Sanctuary to around level 45, you could potentially have something about like 2,300 damage per 2 seconds, which is going to be roughly about 1,320 every second to any monster that's within melee range of you, and about half that for any monster that's not within melee range. It's not a considerably high amount of damage, and I don't really see a good reason to build that specifically. But getting the radius up by putting points in the ability does make the ability more useful in that it knocks back targets from further away and interrupts monsters from a greater distance. Now, keep in mind, though, that most monsters won't attack you off the screen. So if a monster is further than the corners of your screen, they're probably not going to attack you. And so in this particular situation, you really only need the radius of Sanctuary up high enough so that the monsters are getting knocked back and affected so that they don't attack you, but you don't need them to be affected if they're off the screen, because in that situation, they're too far away to do anything to you anyway, and it doesn't really matter. There are a lot of undead areas within the game that you could take advantage of. Arcane Sanctuary is 66% undead. There are, of course, ghosts and ghoul lords, and it works extremely well on the ghosts and ghoul lords in this particular area. Obviously, Canyon of the Magi, if you go into the tombs, pretty much all of the tombs will have undead in them of some sort. There are also multiple types of undead that you can potentially find there. There's ghosts, there's skeletons, there's Haradrim. There's all sorts of very interesting things that will definitely have a strong effect with Sanctuary, and you can get some pretty good use out of it. On top of this, River of Flame will often have a decent amount of undead, but Chaos Sanctuary is actually 66% undead. So the Stranglers, which are in Chaos Sanctuary, are undead, and then of course the Doom Knights and the actual mages are both undead as well. So you've got basically 66% of all the monsters in Chaos Sanctuary are also undead. So another good situation which you could utilize Sanctuary in. Now, some of the places are mostly demons, though. But another interesting place, which let's see if we can find some gloams in here, is Worldstone Keep actually has a lot of monsters that are undead. The horror mages, obviously. Good lord, I need my cleansing. Frickin' crit poison. Another benefit, of course, of having the that crit poison is so nasty. Another benefit, of course, of having the cleansing aura is that you can clear off crit poisons like that, which are freaking nasty. Let's see if we can play with the gloams. I don't know if I want to play with the gloams. It's gonna be scary, but let's do it anyway. All right, first let's remove our poison real quick from our freaking ridiculous crit poison of doom over here. Let's put some actual points into my vitality so I actually have HP. So let's see how strongly this affects gloams in terms of their damage output. Of course, we have a conviction skeleton over here. No thank you, sir. I had to get the worst freaking poison skeletons down here while I'm trying to test out the gloams. So here we got a black soul, and the black soul is trying to shoot lightning at me. As you can see, normally the black soul will shoot lightning pretty quickly, like 1, 2, 3. But when he's unaffected by the knockback, the frequency at which he casts lightning goes down ridiculously. But as you can see, if he gets knocked back against the wall, he can then cast it multiple times. For demonstration purposes, let me take off the Sanctuary Aura. And show what it's like when you don't have the Sanctuary Aura up. So as you can see, without the Sanctuary Aura, he's just going to sit there and spam lightning at me repeatedly until I'm dead. But if I put the Sanctuary Aura back up, now he's in a situation where he keeps stopping, he keeps getting knocked back. He can't quite spam it as well, because he's getting knocked away from me constantly. Still dishing out pretty good damage, though. But he is getting interrupted a lot. It will help you kill them really easily, too. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about Gloams is that Gloams have extremely high physical resistance. So when you try to kill a Gloam without basically Sanctuary or something that will reduce their physical resistance, it's actually pretty difficult to kill them. So for instance, if I swap to, I don't know, just a regular attack here, you notice that I did about, what, 10% of the monster's HP with that attack. If I switch back to Sanctuary, they're dead in about one hit. Because all that physical resistance that the Gloams have is completely stripped from them, and they no longer have the ability to resist the damage output that you're putting out. This is something that's very interesting about Gloams that you only really find out when you remove their physical resistance. But by removing their physical resistance, you make them extremely easy to kill, which means that when you're going up against Gloams, if you have sufficient lightning resistance, by the way, Sanctuary could be a very effective way to take out Gloams quickly, which is usually how you want to take out Gloams. You usually want to take out Gloams quickly. As you can see here, I can pretty much just find the Gloams and kill them immediately. Of course, that was a little spicy. I don't really have high enough lightning resistance on this character, unfortunately. So, what basically am I saying about Sanctuary as an ability? It's worth 1 point. First off, it's definitely worth 1 point. It will allow you to bypass the physical resistance of any undead monster that you come across, and it is definitely a very powerful 1-point wonder. There are 2 items in the game that will offer you the Sanctuary Aura, are Azure Wrath and Lawbringer, but the problem with both of those is they have relatively low physical damage, and they don't really offer the physical damage that you would need to take advantage of the Sanctuary Aura as a whole. So, if you're a physical damage Zealer, a physical damage Paladin of basically any type, Sanctuary becomes an absolutely amazing 1-point wonder because it literally just gives you the ability to bypass any physical immunity of just about any undead monster that you come across, including the physical resistance of any undead monster that you come across. If you want to put more points into it to increase the radius, to harass the undead monsters that you're fighting, to prevent them from being able to shoot lightning at you, shoot fire at you, shoot ice at you, curse you, fire arrows at you in general, it will actually help you tremendously in those situations. One such situation that I can think of off the top of my head is the Ubers. Most of the monsters in the Ubers are actually undead monsters. Mephisto will spawn skeleton archers as well as skeleton mages, which all can be interrupted by the Sanctuary ability. Baal summons forth ghoul lords and ghosts, which all can be interrupted by the Sanctuary ability. On top of that, the ghosts and the ghoul lords are both immune to physical, which means that Sanctuary will help you bypass the physical immunity of both the ghosts and the ghoul lords inside the Uber Tristram. The only monsters in Uber Tristram that are not undead are, of course, Uber Mephisto, Uber Baal, and Pandemonium Diablo, as well as the demon lords, the pit lords or whatever, that are immune to basically everything except for physical. But Sanctuary would actually help you deal with the majority of the adds within that zone. As a skill, I'm not really 100% sold on actually dumping points into it. And although I theory crafted this particular character around Sanctuary, I get the feeling that he would work just fine even without Sanctuary. and would probably be better off if I just 1-point wondered Sanctuary and moved on with my day, which is where I'm going to leave this video. I think Sanctuary is a very good 1-point wonder for just about any Paladin, with the exception of elemental damage Paladins, which wouldn't really get much good effect from this. But if you are a physical damage Paladin of pretty much any type, it will definitely help. One caveat with this particular skill is that the physical damage reduction that it offers does not apply to Crushing Blow. So, interestingly enough, Crushing Blow does not work if the monster is physically immune. And if you amplify damage or decrepify a target and remove that physical immunity, you can still Crushing Blow the target to death. But the problem is that Sanctuary's reduction in physical damage reduction, physical resistance, does not actually allow Crushing Blow to work. So it still functions as if the monster is immune to physical damage with Crushing Blow, even though the monster is not. But you can still hit them with Deadly Strike, you can still hit them with Open Wounds, you can still hit them with your physical damage as well as elemental damage sources. You just can't hit them specifically with the Crushing Blow effect, which is an oddity. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when I spend 22 minutes talking about Sanctuary and its effectiveness in your character. And as always, keep watching. Well, Theorycraft. I think this Theorycraft is pretty much finished. There's really not a lot more to go over. I really think that this character can work and is definitely an effective character, but at the same time, I also feel like he'd be an effective character even without Sanctuary, and I might have to refigure out how to build this character without putting 20 points into Sanctuary. Maybe it could be something that you just have in your utility belt, like Batman. You know what I mean? Like, you just have it, and if you need it, you use it. Like, you know, when you're in Chaos Sanctuary and you're fighting mostly undead monsters, you'd switch over to Sanctuary. And, you know, when you're not fighting the undead monsters, you would definitely switch back to some other aura, like Concentration or Might or Fanaticism or whatever it is that you happen to be using. It would work best with a build that doesn't rely on Fanaticism's increase to attack speed. So if you were using a build that absolutely had to have the Fanaticism increased attack speed to hit your maximum breakpoint, then it might not be worth it to switch over. But if you're running a build like this one in particular that doesn't care about the increased attack speed from Fanaticism, and basically hits the maximum breakpoint of Fanaticism no matter, or Zeal no matter what, so you're a 4-frame Zealer even without Fanaticism, then in that situation, switching over to Sanctuary will actually be a damage increase versus any undead that you come across. So it's a very interesting scenario because you're looking at optimal damage output, right? So that's why you use things like Fanaticism and you use things like Concentration and whatnot, right? You're looking at optimal damage output. Well, in any situation where you come across an undead, it looks like Sanctuary is the optimal damage output over anything else. So Sanctuary is going to reduce the monster's physical resistance to a point where literally you can just absolutely burn through them as if they were made out of tissue paper. And so switching back and forth between your main aura, which would be something else, and Sanctuary is actually beneficial in that situation because you'll get a pretty nice damage bump in the process. Looking at things like Azure Wrath, though, I feel like the damage output on Azure Wrath is just way too low. It focuses on magic damage. It focuses on things like elemental damage, which aren't really being taken advantage of by Sanctuary in pretty much any way. Lawbringer also, same thing, doesn't really have very high physical damage, so again, you're stuck in a situation where you're basically not taking advantage of Sanctuary properly. So to actually take advantage of Sanctuary properly, you have to be using a high physical damage weapon, and have basically fast attack speed to begin with. And that allows you to basically just burn through any undead monster that you come across.
Not in town. Not here.
I definitely do like these ghoul hide bracers with it, though. It seems like it makes a pretty big difference in damage output versus like things like Pindle Skin and whatnot. Let's try a couple more Pindle Skin runs real quick. I want to get a feeling for how well this build works.
Good afternoon.
One thing I noticed with Pindle Skin is that it's actually preventing him from spamming, or preventing them from spamming charge on me as well, which is interesting. So if I get my butt in there and I actually charge in as quickly as I can, it seems like a lot of the times I'm kind of insulated from charge spam. Some of them still get their charges off, but for the most part, it does seem like the charge spam is limited by the Sanctuary aura, because as we were talking about earlier, like it just kind of just interrupts them, makes it very difficult for them to actually do what they're doing.
Not here.
I might have to actually build this character. I already have the Paladin leveled up, obviously, from the Paladin day that we were doing before, so... I kind of want to do a dramatic effect here. So that's P8 Pindle. P8 Pindle's a little tough. He does those charge hits actually hit for a lot of damage. Let's bump this down to P1 real quick. I want to see how ridiculously he dies on P1. I would assume ridiculously fast, but let's go check. It's like one hit, if that. Wow, he kills frickin' Pendle fast. Suck up your corpses. How about that? Suck up all your corpses. You don't need those corpses.
Not in town.
The Sanctuary aura does look kind of cool, though. I think I'll give it that. Alright, guys. I'm going to end this stream here, and I'll be back later tonight, probably. Well, it's actually 9:33 already. Maybe we'll do some more. We'll do something. I don't know. We'll do something.
Not here.
Anyway, as always, thanks for watching, guys and gals, and keep watching. Why's my outro not want to play no more? My outro is revolting against me. Why is my outro revolting? Look, no rebellions, alright? Just no rebellions.